In Tech Matters, Lockheed Martin and a lesson in differentiation. The nation's top contractor has just announced it will acquire Black Hawk helicopter maker Sikorsky Aircraft for $9 billion. The company and industry analysts call the acquisition a natural fit. But there's another, possibly bigger story here, and it could serve as a cautionary tale for the entire IT industry. For more, I'm joined by Nick Wakeman, editor-in-chief of Washington Technology. Nick, let's start with this Sikorsky deal. Give us the basics.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great deal for Lockheed Martin. It gets them into helicopters, which is a new area for them. It gets them access to international markets. That's been a big goal for them, for the company, for the past few years. And it also makes a statement that they're going to be a platform company, that they want to do, be in an area where they can bring, innovation and expertise. And it's also more than just building helicopters. There's a lot of, logistics work that comes from this, command and control, spare parts, support services. There's a very long tail of opportunities that is going to come with this Sikorsky business, and it'll give them more visibility into the markets that they're in. They'll know sort of years out what the spend is going to be, and it's really hard for the government to turn off and turn on these kinds of platforms like they can with IT. The
world is changing. I can't see why there'd be a reason for fewer helicopters. Of course, we're going to need that. That's a done deal for them, and it's a good one. Lockheed also announced plans to divest 5 major components of its government IT and technical services businesses. Here they are: air traffic management, technical services, government enterprise IT, commercial cyber, and government healthcare IT. They add up to about $6 billion in annual revenue with profit margins of more than 7%. Nick, why would Lockheed unload components that make a ton of money?
Well, there's a couple answers to that. I mean, it is a huge piece of business for them. They've been the top IT provider in the federal market for 21 years. But the last few years, they've really been under a lot of pressure. They've seen, their margins have come down, revenue has come down. In 2010, they were about $9.9 billion in their IT revenue. Now in 2014, it was down to $7.8 billion. Now they've done some divestitures, but they've been under a lot of pressure, and it's been increasingly competitive in that marketplace, and they've really struggled on how to deal with that.
Now, yet at the same time, Lockheed's not dumping IT entirely. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, they're keeping their commercial cyber business, which is protecting networks, ferreting out hackers, being proactive and reactive to those kinds of things. There's also some offensive cyber work in there. They're keeping their energy work, which they see as a big growth opportunity. And they're also keeping what they call mission IT, which is kind of the IT that's sort of at what they call the pointy end of the spear, which would be things like intelligence work, real-time analytics, things that really are very focused on specific missions of the warfighter. So they're keeping all that, and I think that'll probably be about $3 billion in IT revenue for them.
Before you go, I'd like to talk about the role price plays in this discussion. You write, here's the hard, sad lesson. For most of the IT market, government customers don't see any differentiator other than price. Too many contractors are interchangeable. All right, Nick, so is the federal government's push toward LPTA, lowest price, technically acceptable, the driving force behind Lockheed's new business model?
I think it's a big part of it. I mean, we've seen LPTA have a tremendous impact over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's really changed, I think, the mindset of the customer. They're much more focused on cost and price, and when you have contractors that are bidding solutions and technologies that, from the customer's perspective, look the same, it really does come down to price. And even now, where we're seeing more best value contracts, the scores come in on the technical side, and the companies are getting the same scores, it becomes a price shootout. And I think that for Lockheed was really a big challenge, because Lockheed does have a pretty, their cost structure with all their other parts of their business is on the high side. And the IT business, you really need a much lower cost structure than Lockheed was able to put in place there.
Well, I know they're watching the show, and now that they own Sikorsky, I'd like to go for a helicopter ride. We'll see what happens with that.
Well, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Nick Wakeman, editor-in-chief of Washington Technology. Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you.